Alright, a warm welcome to another spoiler show. Drumroll! With me, Arne. We're going to talk about some of the exciting cards for Standard out of Dominaria United. Maybe touch on other formats like Explorer, Historic, Modern. Maybe something comes along that I like in those. Who knows? Just write in the comments whatever you think. I love to hear your opinions. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Help comment, algorithm, you know, all those things. Click the subscribe button. Come on, you can do it. It's not that difficult. Anyways, let's get into it. The Raven Man is a card that has been out for, I don't know, more than a month. Was one of the most, early cards spoiled, right? At the beginning of the spoiler season, maybe 2 weeks. Whatever, it doesn't matter. 2/1, legendary creature, black, 2 mana, 2/1. Not that great of stats, of course. What does the ability say? At the beginning of each end step, if a player discarded a card this turn, create a 1/1 black bird creature token with flying. This creature can't block. So this works both turns. This works the opponent just, I don't know, having a Ravine, attacking with it, discarding a card. You get a bird at the end of the turn, even though they did something in their turn. So this triggers both turns just once. Connive is instantly coming to mind. If you play this and then play a Ravine, and then you attack, you connive, you get a bird. The bird will be an attacker, which is extra good with Ravine. More attackers, more counters, more draw. So Ravine and the Raven Man are great synergy, of course, together. In itself, it can also make the opponent discard at 4 mana. Yeah, I mean, if you're out of stuff to do, you're flooding or it's late in the game, you can start making the opponent discard for 4 mana. That's not an amazing ability that you want to do, but it's an extra ability to have. And then you always have to, you get a bird, right? You get a bird. You make him discard, you get a bird. Liliana of the Veil, big one too. They're like here and there, blood tokens, various things that make this card happen. So yeah, this card just, as a 2 mana 2/1, it's small, it's fragile, very fragile, not a good blocker. But hey, you're just investing 2 mana. So if they have a removal, you just invested 2 mana, that's fine. And if it sticks, right? And it just accumulates value. So this is a pretty good 2-drop, I would say, that is going to see play in various decks. I don't know if it's gonna be format breaking or anything like that. I don't think it's gonna be that type of power level, but it's just a solid role filler that we're gonna see in some number of decks. So I think it's a reasonable wildcard investment also early on. But of course, you want to keep in mind it's legendary, so you might not want to play 4 copies of it. But if you play Connive and other ways to discard your own stuff, which you will with the Raven Man, you can play up to 4 copies because you have other stuff to do. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker also works with it, of course. The second chapter, I mean. All right, next up, we got Squee, Dubious, Monarch. Good old Squee is coming back, this time a little stronger as a creature than it has been in the past. Usually it was just a very dorky small creature that just returned all the time, but now it's a haster, 2/2 haste for 3 mana, and when it attacks, it makes a goblin that's also attacking. So that adds up, right? Like 3 damage on turn 3, 4 damage on turn 4, makes multiple creatures. If you are in a goblin deck or pump up your creatures some way, that really does some damage. Yeah, I mean, this card also has the escape cost of 4 mana and exiling 4 other cards. It's pretty much escape from Pharaohs. So you can exile 4 cards from your graveyard, return it, attack again. Yeah, I mean, I could see this being like a 1 or 2 off because, you know, having the first escape card in your deck adds huge value all of a sudden to a graveyard. I know we're playing against, if you play a red-black mirror, there's going to be 10 cards in the graveyard at some point, right? And if one of the players has a Squee in the graveyard, they can just use those 10 cards in the graveyard that just amass themselves over a long game and exile them and cast Squee again and cast Squee again. And then the other player has to remove removal. So the first Squee, I think, is going to be an easy inclusion in a good number of red decks. It works well with Fable again, of course, because you can discard it. Overall, the stats on this card, if you play against a control deck that doesn't have blockers, it's quite nice. But if you play against a green deck or any deck that has decent blockers, a 2/2 that it's attacking, I don't know, it's gonna die. It's most of the time gonna die in combat, so that's not amazing. It dies to cut down, it dies to shocks like Flame Blessed Bolt, Voltage Surge. Yeah, there's some downsides to the card, especially Flameblast Bolt, obviously, because it exiles is quite good against it. So I think we're going to see some number of this, but it's not going to be like a standout card like Goblin Rebel Master was when it was around in Standard. Doesn't look that well positioned right now, and again, it's Legendary, so you don't want to have too many copies. But yeah, put one in your red deck. I think that's totally fine. All right, next up, we get the Archangel of Wrath. 3/4 Flying Lifelink for 4, double white, and then you have Kicker. So when you kick it once for a red, you shoot 2 damage to any target. And if you kick it twice, black and a red, then you shoot 2 damage, 2 damage. So you can shoot 4 to one thing, or 2 to a planeswalker and 2 to a creature. Deals with a Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, Goblin Shaman token, and the Kiki, 2 and 2. You also gain life, right? Because it's the Archangel dealing the damage, and Archangel has lifelink. So it's not just 2 damage, it's 2 damage and 2 life. Yeah, I mean, on turn 4, 3/4 lifelink could be good against a red deck, but that's about it. On turn 5, you shoot one thing. 2 damage is not a lot. So on turn 5, you want to get rid of bigger creatures usually. But hey, 2 damage can get the job done against some smaller stuff. But it's not that exciting. I have 5 mana, 3/4 flying that shoots 2 damage, gains 2 life. With lifelink, I don't know. I'm not super excited about that. It's also a gold card in that way. For 6 mana, now we're talking. I mean, 4 damage, 4 life, 3/4. I mean, that's what you get for a 6. That's a good card, but this is a 6-drop, and it is triple colored. I don't know. It works with Fable, with Kiki-Jiki. You can copy it with the Kiki-Jiki, and I guess if you make treasures with the Goblin Shaman, then you can also easier kicker the black side if you're playing a Boros mid-rangey deck. Who knows? It's gonna be a funny theme. Most of these cards work with Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, unsurprisingly, especially the ones with Enter the Battlefield triggers. Yeah, that's just how it is. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker is gonna stick around. Might even be ban-worthy at some point. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, I think this card is a bit too expensive for what it does. I know some people are hyped about it. It could be a fine 1 or 2 off, but I don't think it's like a 4 off type of card. It really has to be a unique format to have that in. It does make a huge difference if it's a 5/5 flying lifelinker or if it's a 3/4 flying lifelinker, really. That is a big difference, and that's why I wouldn't put it as high as like Lyra, Dawnbringer, or Baneslayer type of cards, because those really dominate the board. 3/4 flying lifelink, not so much. All right, I guess First Strike is also a big component why Baneslayer and Lyra are good. Next up, we got Llanowar Loamspeaker. That is a 2 mana, 1/3, adds any color, and you can later in the game, or I mean on turn 3 already if you want to, turn a land into a 3/3 until end of turn and attack with that land for 3 damage. So it essentially is a 2-drop mana ramper that ramps you out early in the game, and in the late game can hit the opponent for 3 damage. Or it's activated only as sorcery, so you can't do this in the opposing turn, so you can't block with the land. This is downside, of course. That would be maybe also too good if you could just throw lands into the opposing. If you're flooding out and you just throw lands into the opposing attacks, that would be quite nice. But yeah, no, this card is strong. This card is quite good. For a mana dork, really nice. 1/3 goes around the Sharks. Doesn't go around Cut Down. Not many 2-drops go. But it goes around Voltage Surge. Maybe blocks a small creature like Raven Man or Squee Goblins. Blocks that. It happens, right? Like, that comes up that a 1/3 blocks some of these smaller stuff. 2/1 white attackers, Talia. And yeah, makes mana of any color and also hits for damage in the late game. Usually what has been a problem with mana dorks is that you draw them in the late game, right on turn 6, and you just have like a Llanowar Elf, a 1/1. It doesn't do anything, it's bad. But with this one, you have a 3/3 attacker at least. So yeah, I think this card is going to see a lot of play, and green decks are going to love it. I mean, in the end, it depends on how good green will be, of course, but this is a good card. And I would be surprised if it doesn't become a premier 2-drop for any green rampish type of deck. Temporal Firestorm. 3 red, sorcery, deal 5 damage to each creature and planeswalker, and you can also kick her. So it's basically, it's burn down the house, the second mode. And you can also kick her for 1 white and or 1 blue, and then you can phase out creatures and planeswalkers you control. Well, this costs 7 mana if you start phasing out stuff, and you gotta be either blue-red or white-red, of course. 7 mana is a ton. So in Constructed and Standard, I think you're gonna choose Burn Down the House over this in most cases. Having the ability to make Devils, which is quite, like, it basically bridges the gap, right? You play against a blue-white control deck, you can make Devils. You play against a creature deck, you can make 5 damage. With this card, what are you gonna do against a control deck? It's just gonna be stuck in your hand and do nothing. That's so fantastic about Burn Down the House, that when you want to be proactive, you can just make Devils. So, and the upside of the phasing out stuff is just too narrow, too expensive, and yeah. So as long as Burn Down the House is in the format, I don't think this card is gonna see play. All right, Javimaya Iconoclast. 2 mana, 2 mana, 3/2. All right, decent stat line. Unfortunately, dies to a lot of removal, but at least it has higher power than toughness. It hits a bit of damage, and I think the important part on this card is the Gruul, the red-green part, because Kicker, it also has Trample, by the way, which could come up on a 3/2. It is a 4/3 haster on turn 3 with Kicker, and that is quite strong. 4/3 haste for 3 mana, 4 damage for 3 mana at haste, really good. Punching in there, and then later on you have it's also trampling, and then you have a 3/2 left over, and you have the flexibility of casting this as a 2-drop. Imagine you have 2 of them in your hand. You can just cast 1 on a 2-drop and 1 on a 3-drop. It's a great card in terms of filling out your curve. By having a good 3-drop, which this is better as a 3-drop, of course, but also the potentiality of just casting this on turn 2. That is really valuable in Magic, because you're going to have variance in your draws, and sometimes you're not going to have a 2-drop, and you're going to have maybe a Squee or a Reckless Stormseeker, what have you, as a 3-drop in your hand. And you just play this on turn 2, play the Reckless Stormseeker on turn 3, and go to town. So yeah, this is a great addition for any Gruul deck, and it's also an elf that could come up with some synergies we might see later in this video. But yeah, I do like this card, and I think, like, if I'm playing a Gruul aggressive deck, I'm looking into playing this. Is it as strong that I would play it in my red-green werewolf deck? I don't think so. I mean, it's close. Depends. I mean, the red-green werewolf deck has a pretty decent curve all around already, doesn't it? Maybe a couple copies, but in the red-green werewolf deck, you would rather have the synergistic card. The synergistic wolf, of course, or werewolf. All right, we got a mythic here, the Soul of Windgrace. Junt, or you can say Ziatora, I guess. No, what's it called? Riveteers. Ziatora is the lord, right? Riveteers. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may put a land card from a graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. So that is ETB trigger. If you have a land already in a graveyard, you get another land into play. Interesting. With that trigger on the stack, you can also use one of the 3 abilities Soul of Windgrace has. So enters the battlefield, trigger on the stack, you can discard a land card, gain 3 life, and get that land instantly onto the battlefield tapped. If you didn't have a land in your graveyard yet, might be fine to do so on turn 5. Gaining some life, 3 value. For 1 red, you can discard a land card, draw a card. So then on turn 6, you can play it, instantly discard a card, draw a card, boom, get the land into play. Value. 3 mana, discard a land card, it gains indestructible at the end of turn. Those are 3 abilities. Whenever it attacks, you can also put lands into the play. I mean, this card seems pretty powerful if it sticks around, of course. So we got to take a look at the removal in the format. Being 3 colors is a bit awkward because there's some things like Knockout Blow and the Beatdown card. And so being 3 colors is not necessarily a bonus, because it makes you vulnerable against the color hoser removal. 5/4 Voltage Surge kills it. It goes around cut down. But again, we're talking about a big creature. Doesn't necessarily... The enter battlefield is good, but it's not that good. It's 3 colors. I'm not too excited about this. I wasn't excited about the... I don't know what the card's called, but there's a 5/4 Junt card. Riveteers card in the last set as well, Streets of New Capenna, which people were hyped about. I don't like it can blitz for 5, and whenever it hits the opponent, then you think you get to look at the top, and then you know what I'm talking about. It's unfortunately not done here. Anyways, like they're both sort of in a similar vein. I don't know, like Soul of Windgrace is less aggressive. It's a more mid-rangey card. And if you have synergies, I guess with Fable of the Mirror Breaker or Blood Tokens again, or even, I guess, Liliana +1, you could have some sort of Junt mid-range deck where this could top out the curve because you have these other ways that are just named of discarding lands into your graveyard and accumulating value. It also gets back Takenuma or Iganjo, etc. if you're one of those discard legendary lands. Yeah, overall, I mean, it's free color. I wouldn't necessarily invest into this card early on. It might see play. I'm gonna try it for sure. But it doesn't scream to me like format all-star. Zul'Karnar the Tainted. Another triple colored mythic. At the beginning of your end step, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Draw a card, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, or it deals 3 damage to up to 1 target creature. Or Planeswalker. The last ability is quite strong. You get a sort of a lightning bolt. That is really nice. Then drawing a card is very strong. Each opponent losing 2 life and you gain 2 life is not that great. But at the end of it, you have to return it to your opposing battlefield. So after all of these abilities are done, the 4th turn, they get it. Yeah. Again, it's a big creature that doesn't have an enter the battlefield. So you play it and your opponent has an Infernal Grasp or like a Fateful Absence. Rough. Your opponent has a counterspell. You have a 5-drop. Rough. 5 mana card has to be really freaking strong to make it. I'm not the biggest fan of this one, I must say. Like, also being a Grixis, of course, is going to be tough. Oh, okay, yeah, your Grixis deck can play this card. Maybe it's going to be like a 1 or 2 off. If you play it, you kind of want to also include ways to bounce it back to your hand, right? So you're always going to have Otawara. With that, you can bounce it back to your hand after the first 3 abilities resolved. You can play Fading Hope, I guess. You can play Rona's Vortex, stuff like that. Yeah, this card's fine. I don't think it's like amazing or anything. It's just a big flashy haymaker. Obviously a limited bomb, but not necessarily a constructed all-star. I would chill on investing wild cards into this one. Temporary Lockdown. Yeah, you can already see the smile on my face. 1 white enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until it leaves the battlefield. So it's like a O-ring it's a portable hole. It's the big brother of portable hole. Enchantment instead of artifact though. Yeah, this is strong. This is a really unique effect that I think is really good. So in Explorer Historic, we have cards like Culling Ritual, which is very, very close to this, right? Culling Ritual destroys all non-land permanents with mana value 2 or less. And that card sees play in sideboards because it blows up. It hoses the Trail of Crumb decks, hoses the Sacrifice decks, hoses token decks, hoses blue-white artifacts that put a bunch of small stuff on the play. And this is going to be the same effect for white. Reactor Sacrifice, boom. Take all the tokens away, take everything. Devil tokens, whatever. Construct tokens, the anvil, the creatures, everything just gone. And especially a red-black deck won't have an easy way to remove this, right? So yeah, this card is fantastic. It is going to be a multi-format all-star, honestly. Like it's going to slot in a lot of formats in Explorer and the blue-white decks. Historic, surely too. Pioneer, maybe even Modern. I mean, in Modern, I could even see this card being strong. In Modern, there's a lot of very small to the ground decks, and this is going to slot in against those artifacts decks like Blue-White Hammer or what have you. This card is really strong. I think it might not even be as strong in Standard. The Standard depends on the format, right? Imagine we have a mid-range slugfest where everybody's playing 3-drops, 4-drops, Planeswalkers, and removal. Then this card won't see much play, but still having access to it is a big, it's just huge. And it's going to really destroy some of the small aggressive deck, and especially Reactor Sacrifice. They have to have a plan against it, which I already know. Like, you're just going to play Planeswalkers, right? Planeswalkers with 3 or more mana are really going to be good against Temporary Lockdown. But yeah, I mean, this card is quite strong and will see play, and is a great tool for Blue-White. And I'm certainly... Blue-White is looking good, I must say. Airtight Resurrected, one of the most recent spoiled cards. Blue-Black, one of my favorite color combination. 3/2 flash. When Airtight Resurrected enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 counter target spell, active ability, or triggered ability. I like that. It controllers draws a card. Okay, I don't like that. Or destroy another target creature or planeswalker. Its controller draws a card. Whew. So basically, if the effect of controlling the person doesn't draw a card, if that wouldn't be there, this card would be insane, right? Insanely broken. It would be all over Standard, everybody would play it, but the opponent drawing a card. So how big of a downside is that? I think it's negligible, honestly. I think this card is going to see play. It's a legendary, so you don't want to maybe slot it in a bunch, but I think Esper decks or blue-black control decks, Grixis decks, all alike, are going to play this card in small numbers. Maybe as a 2-off. I think 2 is going to be a solid number for this one. You can pair it with like Obscura Interceptor or Wandering Emperor, which also have 4 drops of Flash or Memory Deluge. So to keep your opponent on the toes, right? They don't really know, what could you have? Do you have an Airtight? Yeah, again, like countering a spell or destroying something, it's just the flexibility built into this thing is just huge. It's good against control decks. It's good in a creature fight. If you're playing against an aggressive deck, you slam this down, kill their creature, their best one. Yeah, they get to draw a card, but at least you get another free to block another creature. So you get that 2-for-1 sort of. Like you get it's a 2-for-2, right? But you have the board impact immediately. You get to kill something, block something. They get to draw a card, sure, but the tempo it brings is huge. And really, Standard is often about tempo, and them having a card in hand doesn't really matter that much. If you go, I don't know, 2-drop Fable, and then on turn 4 you go Airtight, you're on the play, how are they going to come back? Yeah, they have a card in hand, sure. Who cares? So I think this card is quite strong, and I'm definitely gonna play it. It's also a wizard. It's a human, Phyrexian. Maybe those creature types come up. Wizard is potentially a useful creature type. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. Very happy to see it. Leaf Crown Visionary. I mean, there's been a bunch of lords. I'm just gonna take a look at this one. Because I think it's really, really strong, and yeah, it warrants to take a little review. Green, we have a 1/1, pumps other elves, and whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card. What? This card is outrageous. This is one of the best mana lords, like maybe the best mana lord on two for elf or just for a deck in general. Like this card is ridiculous in an elf deck. Elf decks usually, I mean, down here you see another 2-mana elf, but this is a much worse card. The Clan Caller is like much worse than this thing. Yeah, elves are super cheap, and you have a bunch of green mana usually, so you're gonna pay 1 to draw a card every time you cast an elf spell. This is literally, I mean, this is really strong. It's basically never run out of gas. Just overwhelm the opponent with cards. This is must-kill threat, and especially in Historic, where you have, or in Modern, where you have what's it called? You know, the big druid that makes a bunch of mana. I mean, in formats where you can make a bunch of mana in the elf decks, Elvish Archdruid, right? Then this card is going to be obscene. In Standard, maybe less so. Depends on how many elves we have. We don't really have good elves right now, so it's probably not going to see much play. But this is going to be eternally an elf we're going to see in elf commander decks and all type of elf decks, of course. I mean, this card's just outrageous on rate. I was like, yeah, this is crazy good. All right, we got Nemata, Primeval Guardian. 2 black-green, legendary creature, Treefolk, reach. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile instead. When you do, create a 1/1 green supporting token. It's a 3/4. I mean, by now, we all are thinking about only one thing. It's not a Thesaurus. That is very, yeah. It's here, the comment, Kalitas, is that you? Hits it pretty well. Yeah, this is very much a Kalitas impersonator. Or is it Kalitas? Yeah, is it maybe Kalitas under here? Who knows? Well, in any case, it also has abilities, activate abilities like Kalitas. 2. Kalitas only has 1. You can sack a supporting, get 2/2 until end of turn for Nemata, and you can sacrifice 2 supportings, you draw a card. Yeah, immediate comparison is just the Kalitas. Kalitas Trade-off Get has been an amazing card in Standard when it was around. It's very strong. Very, very strong staple. I played a bunch. I made a bunch of, I won like tournaments with it. Great card. Does Nemata get up to Kalitas power level? I don't think so. Reach is a nice ability, but it doesn't come nearly, like Lifelink is so much stronger than Reach, especially in Constructed, in Standard. Yeah, lifelink, gaining the life back, having a kill condition just gets you out of every situation is so good. 1/1s are much worse than 2/2s. Like, if you play Kalitas, you kill a creature of theirs, which is often something you do, right, in the same turn. Oh my god, imagine Kalitas and cut down in Standard. Whew. In any case, then you get a 2/2, so even if they kill your Kalitas, you still have a 2/2, which is a decent-sized creature that can maybe block one of their 2/2s or attack, what have you. But 1/1s are much worse than 2/2s. So, yeah. And then the abilities down here, they're cool and nice, but 2 Suprolings drawing a card is also pretty costly. 2 of your opponent's creatures has to have died at that point already. and you can draw a card with it. I don't know. I mean, this card's fine. If you play a black-green mid-range deck, you might play it in small numbers against, I don't know, but I'm not too happy about it. I don't. It says if a creature an opponent controls dies, so it's not just tokens. Okay, that makes a difference. If it's actually every creature, let me just confirm that maybe. Primeval Guardian. Because that makes a difference, right? Like if it actually if it kills tokens, why does it not load? Okay, whatever. Okay, I'll maybe put it in the comments. But yeah, Caritas said non-token creatures. If this really says creatures, every creature, which I kind of doubt, then it would be better, of course, because then against Rakdos Sacrifice, for example, when they have a bunch of tokens, and you would stop the Meathook Massacre triggers, right? Because you exile, Meathook says dies. Then so this would be a decent sideboard card against Rakdos Sacrifice, for example. All right, we got the Elder Dragon War. 2 and a red. Read ahead, so you can start on any chapter you want. But then you don't have the first chapter or the second chapter, whatever you want to do. So it's a 2 damage to each creature and each opponent. It's a small sweeper, 4 mana, not fantastic, but if you play against a token deck, this could come down and just sweep everything. Rakdos Sacrifice again, or some sort of, I don't know, white deck that just still has creatures. You have a sweeper. That's cool. Second ability is discard any number of cards and draw that many cards. That's sort of like a Fable of Mirror Breaker thing. If you have a bad hand, you can cycle a little bit through. Third, you get a dragon flying creature. This card is flexible, right? You could just go onto the third chapter and just make a 4/4 immediately. You could choose to discard a number of cards if you were playing into a control deck and you have a bunch of dead removal in your hand, or you need land drops, what have you, or you have clunky 5 drops, too many of them. Just use the second chapter, fix your draw. Not too bad. Synergizes with Squee or other graveyard shenanigans. Yeah, and then you get a dragon a turn after. And then you have a sweeper built in. So this is a decent mid-range card, I'd say. Pretty decent. It looks a bit unexciting, but the flexibility really is huge and constructed, and this offers a lot of flexibility. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that we see some Elder Dragon War. I wouldn't go out and say like, oh my god, this is going to be a staple. But I think it's a pretty decent card, and I'm kind of intrigued by it because I like options. I like this flexibility and stuff. It's a cool card, and yeah, I hope it's going to be playable. I really hope, and I think it will be. Leyline Binding. Yeah, this card is powerful. 6 mana, flash enchantment, exile a non-land permanent until Leyline Binding leaves the battlefield. So everything, right? Non-land permanent, everything besides lands. That's great. Domain, this spell costs 1 less for each basic land. So if you have 2 basic types, it's going to cost 4. That is already a decent rate, but it's like, it's not that great. 4 mana, exiling each non-land permanent has been in the past. At Flash has been a thing. We have like cards like Cast Out. Usually Oblivion Ring costs 3 mana, but then doesn't have Flash. Like Borrowed Time. We have that available in Standard right now. But if you do have a tricolor land, which we have a lot of in white, then all of a sudden this only costs 3 mana at Flash. And that's a really good rate. That is a really good rate. And if I look at Eternal formats, for example, like Nif Mizzet or in Modern, in the Omnath deck, where you could easily get to Domain on turn 2, Domain 4 or 5 even, this all of a sudden becomes a 1 mana kill spell. This is ridiculous, like in those formats. And I think, yeah, in Nif Mizzet, in Explorer or Pioneer, this could be a big addition. I mean, they do have Domain very quickly too, and then you have a 1 mana kill spell. I mean, this is really strong in those formats. And even in Standard, you could just play an Esper deck, which then you have Rafine's Tower and basic planes, etc. And you also put some Sparrow's Headquarters or Xander's launches in. Those are just going to be blue-black duels, but they have a mountain in them as well, or blue-white duel with a forest in them. And then it's going to make this cheaper. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm very much intrigued, and this is a very powerful effect that's going to see format play across everywhere. Unfortunately, it's a rare. So you're gonna invest your rare wildcard into this, but it's good. It's a good investment, I'd say. All right, back to the multicolored cards. Shanna Purifying Blade, Legendary Human Warrior, free for your lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay X. If you do draw X cards, X can't be greater than the amount of life you gained this turn. Okay. Yeah. I am not a fan, honestly. Like, we have a 3-mana free lifelinker. Okay, that's like, yeah, not that fantastic. And then it has to have attacked. It has to survive the combat. And then at the end step, you're gonna draw cards. And you have to pay mana to draw cards. So there are lots of things have to go right here. I don't know. It's just a free lifelinker for free. Dies to random removal, strangle, what have you. It doesn't die to cut down, at least. That's a good thing. But still, you know, you play this, your opponent plays Liliana, -2. Bye-bye, Shanna. Not a fan of this card. Zur, Eternal Schema, flying 1/4. Enchantment creatures you control have Death Touch, Lifelink, Hexproof. Enchantment creatures. Interesting, right? So it synergizes with Kamigawa, where there's some enchantment creatures, I guess. Target non-aura enchantment you control becomes a creature in addition to its other types and has base power and toughness equal to its mana value. So you can turn enchantment aura, any enchantment you can turn into creatures. So we have in Kamigawa, we have some enchantments, right? We have the sagas, all that stuff. All those sagas turn into creatures themselves. But yeah, I mean, this synergizes with the sagas, right? Quite nice. Gives them hex-proof, lifelink, and death touch. Powerful, but it is a very synergistic card. So this is like, you can't really predict how this is going to turn out. I might take a look at like, if this can play, but it might not, you know, like, there might just not be enough synergies. 1/4 also dies to cut down, unfortunately. So again, 3-color card. Yeah, it's Esper. We'll see. Maybe there's a synergy deck, but likely not. So definitely don't put your Wolfie Wild card into this before you don't have a wacky streamer build a brew around it, and then maybe it's like broken or anything. Could be. Never say no. Never say never, right? But like, probably not. All right. Anyways, this is the last one for today. Hope you liked this video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you have any other opinions, if I missed any synergies, any big things. I mean, I didn't talk about every synergy that every card has in standard, etc. So you can perhaps point some of the major ones out. Don't be like, Arne, you missed this, even though it's not important. You can do that, but don't be annoying, of course. Anyways, I hope you liked this video. Let me know. And if you don't, yeah, then just don't let me know and shut up. Just kidding. Yeah, this is some unusual content for me to do. But yeah, you guys requested it, and here's some pro opinion on the spoilers. Signing off. Bye-bye. See you next time.